Hello students, it's Miss Shaquin. Today I wanted to show you a tutorial about how to make some really beautiful outdoor landscapes. We are going to use markers for this, a little bit of water to dab the markers and make a watercolor effect. You'll need paper. I would recommend something a little bit thicker if you have it, so that the paper doesn't crinkle up as much when you get it wet. But if you only have computer paper, that's okay. And then optional is some black or colored construction paper. Oh, and also, sorry, you'll need some string and scissors for part of it, also optional. Okay, we are going to be doing this artwork based off of the art from a gal named Jen Aranyi. This right here is her Instagram, and she makes some really cool things. You'll see here on this one, she has this leaf with the painting inside. She does a lot of irregular shapes. So she doesn't use just, a square piece or rectangle piece of paper. She has these ornaments here. In her design, she does a lot of really colorful backgrounds and then black and white in the foreground, whether it's nature or city. They're often very small. You can see this compared to the size of her pens, which make them kind of unique. Here's another one with an irregular shape composition. We have the triangle with the trees and the moon popping out in two different sizes. This one's so tiny. I wanted to tell you about her because I think that we get in our heads a lot that professional artists who do art for a living only do, like galleries and museums. And a lot of people use social media in places like Etsy, Society6, different online places to sell their things. So you see here, she has a very professional name in the designs, and she has had 2,393 sales. So this was important to me just because, if you ever want to be an artist one day, I want you to know that there's a lot of different ways to be a professional artist, and it's not just about, getting your artwork in a gallery, right? So that was one example of it. But now let's go. I'm going to pull up my Ladybug so that you can see how we do it. So go ahead and get out your paper. Now, what we're going to do is make some different irregular shapes on our paper. I don't want my composition to be this big. I want it to be smaller. For example, maybe I will make a composition in the shape of a triangle, like her. Maybe I'll do one in the shape of a pine tree. That might be unique, but I'm going to keep it small. And for this one, I'm not doing a ton of details, kind of like a simple outline. And then for the one I want to model with, I'm going to do a circle. Now you can use anything you want to trace a circle. I would recommend tracing something. It just makes it a little more exact. I'm gonna erase that. This is why we use a pencil. Okay, so after you get a few different shapes, your next step will be to make some mountains. Now I like to do mine about halfway through so that half of it is sky and then half is that black and white foreground in the front. I'm just going to make some zigzag lines, some big, some little. And if this actually looks too much like a pattern, the big, little, so maybe I'll shift it up a little bit. Again, that's why we use pencils, right? Okay, once you have a design that you like, what you will do is your background. Now, when we did this in class, we used watercolor, but you might not have watercolor at home. So what you can do is use markers. Now, I like to choose either warm or cool colors when I do this, just because I know they blend well together. You'll notice that I'm leaving a lot of gaps in my drawing or in my coloring. That's because I want to leave areas to fill in with different colors so that it kind of blends together when I get it wet. I'm using red, orange, and yellow, which are my warm colors. And then remember, if you want to use cool colors, you would use green, blue, and purple. But the trick with getting this watercolor with the markers to work is you really need to fill up the whole area. It's not going to bleed together as much as traditional watercolor, so it needs to be touching each other when I do it. And I'm going to be careful with my yellow not to get it on top of my other colors as much, just because I don't want to get that yellow kind of mixed in with my red and orange, so that if I use it another time, I have more of a pure yellow color. If you go over the edges out here, it's okay because we're going to cut them out, but I want to be really careful on this inside line here. Okay, once you have it filled out, you are going to dab it, not wipe. You're going to dab it gently with water. I have a paintbrush here that I am going to use like this, but if you don't have paintbrushes at home, you can always just dab it with your finger. Try not to get it on the mountain area. That's why I chose to have a paintbrush. You could maybe try to use a Q-tip too, something small to get in the areas. And I'm going to make it slightly damp. I don't want big puddles, especially if you're using computer paper or anything that's more thin. You don't want to use too much water because obviously thinner paper is a little bit more fragile. Okay. Once this dries, it will blend together just a little bit more. What I will do next is take a Sharpie. Now, if you don't have a Sharpie, you can use a black colored pencil. You can use a black crayon, anything else. And we are going to outline the mountain. I need to be very careful on these areas that are wet because the paper is fragile. You could even skip over any wet areas that got onto your mountain line. Do it once it's dry. See, like there, I got a little bit of color on the edge. I'll just press very lightly. I don't need to outline the circle because we'll be cutting it out. Next step, we are going to add some shadows to the mountains. I am going to add shadow to the right side of my mountains. So I'll go from the very top, do kind of a zigzag line to the bottom. Top, zigzag line to the bottom. Just like that. Now what Jen Aranyi does, that artist I told you about, is she does a lot of shading by using diagonal lines. So if you want to try something different, you could do this. You could do a stippling effect, which is where you do just lots of dots to make it look darker. Totally up to you. I'm going to add a little bit more texture to my mountains to make it look rocky. All right. Your next step will be to add your horizon lines. The horizon line separates the ground from the sky. Now I'm going to do kind of zigzag ones across. Just if you imagine that's where the snow might dent in or the land slopes down a little bit. You could also add other little details, like maybe I'll want a creek. Now, if I do that, I need it to be way small back in the background because things look smaller further away, and then bigger up here. To make it bigger up in the foreground, I'll do a second line. Now I'm in the middle ground, so it's medium size. Then I'll probably connect together about there. And you can fill it in. I want to keep this area black and white, just like her artwork. And then I need to add some trees. She added tents and other details too, which feel free to do, or if you want to make it like a desert scene, whatever you want really. This is just one example. So anyway, if a tree is far in the background, it's going to be teeny tiny. This one's a little closer, so I'll do a little bigger. And this one will be my closest one. I do a vertical line and then zigzags getting bigger as they go down. The more size variance you have, the more depth you are going to have in your artwork. If all of my trees were about the same size, it wouldn't look like I could see as far as I do. But since my trees, I have very small, medium, and large, it looks like I can see very far into my painting. I may even have a big one coming off the edge here. All right, feel free to experiment with what kinds of things you put in your scene. But your next step is you are going to, so what we're doing next is I'm going to show you how to make it an ornament if you would like, or some like a little hanging decoration. If you are not interested in doing that, you can just cut it out and then attach it to construction paper just to kind of give it a nice border and be done. or you can attach it, and I'll show you how to make a hole and tie the string to make it an ornament if that is what, if you have a Christmas tree, that's what you celebrate. Okay, so now I have it cut out. I will, what you do next, sorry, I just had a brain fart, is I actually made a mistake. I traced the same size and then I was gonna glue it on. But the issue is then I don't really have a frame at all. So what I was supposed to do, see, even teachers make mistakes, is I'm going to glue it on. Now, if your paper is still pretty soggy from where you added water, it might be wise to wait until it's dry. Whoop. I will put it on my paper, flip it over, and press down. Give it a little massage. Oh, so nice. Okay. Your final step is I'm going to want to cut it out again. Now you can draw your line with a pencil if you want. I feel pretty confident. So I am going to cut it out, leaving about a 1/4 inch edge around it. If you want to find a circle thing to trace that's slightly bigger than yours, feel free to. If you don't feel, super confident in getting it exact. Okay. Now, typically I would hole punch it, but you might not have a hole punch at home. So what you can do is take a sharp pencil or a pen, anything sharp, and I want to put a hole in it. Now I'm going to put it about right here, because if I put it too close to the edge, it's just going to rip out. I need to have a decent amount of paper in between the hole and the side. I'm going to press down. I'm using my back fingers to support it so the hole will go right in between. And my paper is still a little flimsy, it's a little damp, but you should be able to get just a little hole. You can even ask, I'm gonna wiggle it around to make it bigger, but you can ask an adult for help if you need. Okay, next step is to add the string, and I'll show you how I like to tie it. You can use whatever string. Now this is a little hard to get in the hole, so to make it smaller, I'm going to twist it really tight so that I can fit it in the hole better. And I'll just take the little tip that's picking up. There we go. All right, so once you get it, and you can even make a second one to do on the back the same size so that you have a double-sided one. What I'm going to do now is I will line up the ends. I am going to make a loop. Can you see that? A little loop. And then I am going to go, so my loop is going underneath right now. It's under this top string. I'm going to go over and then through the hole and tighten it. I'm doing this at the end of my string so that I have all this open space to hang. If you tie it like a shoelace, you are going to get your knot here, and then you're not going to have this gap to tie it on things. So there you go. That is a Jen Aranyi inspired landscape design. If you try it out, I would love to see it, so feel free to post on Seesaw. If you are watching this over our holiday break, our winter break, I hope you are really just enjoying some time off, and I will see you back at school, hopefully. Thanks for watching.